We're breaking down walls, tearing apart the lies. Together we'll stand, watch the whole world rise. Faith transcends boundaries, uniting every heart. In this movement of love, we're all taking part.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Vision Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel. Wow, episode 15 already. Guys, we're rolling, we're moving, we're grooving, chugging along. So excited for you to be here today. Thanks for tuning in. Today's episode is sponsored by Men of Valor. Thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. Without you, I couldn't do this. You guys helped me financially and spiritually. It's just been an amazing journey to have you walk alongside me. So today's guest is really awesome. He is I would say lay pastor. I don't know. We'll have to ask him about what he says. But he is also the restoration director for a coffee shop here in Nashville. You may have heard me speak about it in the episode with Ryan Lampa that for PLN, People Loving Nashville. They have their own coffee shop that serves the population that they're trying to serve and bring love and hope to. And that coffee shop is called Paradeisos. So I would just ask that you help me welcome Joey Godinho.
What's up, man?
What's up, man? Thanks for being here. I love the premise of what you guys have been doing at Paradeisos and obviously BLN, and Ryan's my brother-in-law, so I'm biased and already bought in, but I just want to hear more about you and what you have going on and how you got into where you're at. What brought you to being in ministry and things like that.
Yeah. Gosh, man. It could be a long story, so I want to.
We got time.
Make it concise so we can talk about other things. But well, the Lord brought me and my family down here to Nashville with nothing in sight, to be honest with you. It was right after the pandemic, and we were in Florida at the time. We have 4 children. We had just finished adopting our girls from the foster system, and the Lord was like, now's the time. And we're like, okay, where?
Yeah.
And through just circumstances where he made it very clear, prayer, listening to podcasts and reading books, and everyone was like, Nashville.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, we think maybe Nashville, man. And we ended up moving out here. I literally flew up to look at a house because the guy wouldn't let me rent it sight unseen. He was like, nah, I don't feel comfortable with that. So I flew up, walked through the house with him, signed a lease, flew back, loaded up a box truck, and moved my family up here. And man, I was jobless for 3 months. And 4 kids, that's stressful. Where we were living in Florida, the rent was like really low. Like we bought our first house in Florida. I mean, this was a while ago, but we bought our first house for like $67,000.
Well, nice.
So it was like the difference between here and Nashville was like, oh, okay, we'll rent it first until we figure out like what it looks like to buy. And man, moved up here, took on that, and we were living off savings for 3 months before I ended up at People Loving Nashville.
Yeah.
And at that time, dude, I had no experience in like, I guess what we would call social work. Other than my wife runs a nonprofit that does work in Kenya. And I had gone like on trips with her, but I didn't know like how to work with the vulnerable population in any like educated form or like, professional way. It was just like, I go with my wife in teams and we feed people and we, help train teachers to educate better out there. And then that was like my only experience. So saw this job pop up at People Living Nashville. It was an outreach position.
Yeah.
And I was just honestly just desperate for work. People wouldn't let me scrub toilets. And and I was like, well, I need to make some money because I got mouths to feed and stuff like that. So I applied, and I remember getting the email from Ryan about setting up the first interview. And I was just like shocked because like, I was like, man, I'm like applying to flip burgers at Burger King and
whatever you
and all
can.
this stuff. And everyone's shooting me down. And then this thing that I had like zero experience in, and just sort of reached out like on a limb, and the Lord was like, let's continue this conversation. So long story short, I ended up getting the job. And I remember when I got hired, Ryan was like, hey man, I just want you to know your resume was terrible and you're like not qualified for this job at all.
Yeah.
But your cover letter, the whole staff agrees that something about your cover letter was like, he's the guy. And man, that's where it started. That was 4 years ago. Started just bringing meals down into homeless encampments during the week and trying to connect people to resources and on a path to getting into housing. And then from there, that's when we started asking questions. Like we were seeing a bunch of people get into housing. They were like housing people left and right, hundreds of people all the time, like voucher here, get into housing. And then we started noticing, and I'm sure Ryan talked about our Monday night outreach.
Some, yeah.
We started seeing people that had gotten into housing. We met them like at night outreach or in a homeless camp. And then they were back at Monday nights. And we were like, what's going on? They're like, I lost my housing. And this kept happening over and over again. And like the failure rate of getting people into housing was like super low, or the failure rate was super high. So we started just asking questions like, well, what was missing? Like, what did you need? What do you need to like keep your housing? Like, and they're like, man, I need a place to heal and I need a place to work. So the crazy people we are, we're like, great, we'll start a business and then we'll hire y'all. And, we picked the most lucrative one, coffee.
Yeah.
And that was very sarcastic. If anyone knows coffee, there's not a lot of margin there.
Yeah.
But we just loved coffee. We wanted to provide jobs and we're like, what can we do?
Yeah. People love coffee.
Yeah. So I went from doing outreach into developing our restoration program. So predominantly we work with folks that have moved into either temporary housing or, permanent housing solutions and just need support.
Yeah.
And that looks like a place where they can come sit with your wife. She's one of our restoration specialists. And dream about the future. Think about what's next for me. And then Colleen connects them with resources that can sustain that. And they work on setting goals and they work on budgets and just things that they haven't been able to think about because they've been living in survival mode for so long. It's always been the vision of like, man, I was going from like, where do I sleep tonight? What do I eat today? What's tomorrow going to look like?
Yeah.
So now, okay, I have a roof over my head. I can actually think past the here, the now. And what does next week look like for me? What does next month look like? And some of them, I think if I would say like, hey, what does next year look like for you? That would still be really terrifying to them. So we work to wrap them with resources and support, sustain that. And then we pair that with work. So well, not all of them yet, but a lot of them. And we're trying to build business so we can provide all of them with jobs. But they learn how to roast coffee.
Cool.
And some of you coffee people are like, oh, you're just teaching anyone to roast coffee. And I was like, no, we did a lot of research. We did a lot of investigating and found the most low barrier coffee roaster on the market. It's called the Bellwether. We built a really good relationship with the company and they're huge supporters of what we're doing. And if it fits in the model, it roasts amazing coffee. And if you can weigh green coffee beans and use an iPad, you can roast coffee.
Yeah.
So the whole idea was like, they just need a place to come, get experience, heal, make some money. And then the long-term goal is we connect them. Not everyone wants to roast coffee, but if we can help you get on your feet and then dream about the future, we can help you find, what does that look like for you? Is that a different industry? Some of them, long-term work might not be an option. So what are our options? Are you eligible for some type of, disability or something to support you and sustain you? So where do we get that income to sustain the cost of living inside now? And where do we heal and how do we help you heal? So that's sort of where we are now.
Yeah.
Started roasting. And then a year ago this month, we opened our brick and mortar here in West End, Nashville, right by Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
It's an
So
amazing
now you can
place.
come visit and see what's happening and drink the coffee.
It's good too.
Yeah,
It's-
thank you.
It is. I love it. And the food, man. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm always over there just eating
Love it.
so good. Well, look, so I do want to talk more about Paradeisos, but you said you have 4 kids
Mm.
and then you're also doing this with Paradeisos and you said going to things with your wife and
Yeah.
being in Kenya and doing all that. Like, how are you? I just want to talk into that a little bit of like how you balance it.
Yeah.
You know, what it looks like being a father and a minister or just a servant, if you will, and you know how you're doing with that.
Yeah. I'm learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, so our oldest kid, he just turned 11 April 1st.
Cool.
So I've been a dad for a little while now. And I would say and maybe we've had this conversation before, but usually when we meet someone for the first time and they like sort of hear about our life and what we do and how many kids we have and what's going on, they literally like, I think their brains explode because they can't like comprehend like, how do you guys do all this? And how do you guys like not go crazy and lose your minds? Or and honestly, I think for the longest time I would just be like, oh, it's just God, man. I'm not doing anything. He's like sustaining that all. But then the more like thought through that and the more my kids grow and get older, I was beginning to see, and this, I mean, we can get deep if you want. There was a moment in my life, and I was actually standing in Ryan's driveway. It was like pitch dark at night. All of our kids, he has 3 kids, running around the yard, screaming and stuff. I can't remember why we were over there. And I remember them bringing up this sort of topic of like, how do you guys do this? Like, how do you guys keep going? And you have so much going on. And I broke down, man. Because it was in that moment watching my kids run around and like, I was like pretty like physically unhealthy too at the time. Like my body was hurting. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't resting. And I was like starting to really feel that. I'm turning 40 this year. So, I'm like, oh, maybe I need to like do something or change something. But what I realized that was affecting is like my physical health, my spiritual health, my emotional health was affecting my relationship with my children. And I remember in that moment thinking, you know, whatever, we go gung ho, we make money, we provide, we have a house, we feed them, they get, you know, all the things they want. They're living a good life. But in that moment, I realized I am not a friend to my child. I'm a father. I'm a provider. You know, I make sure they have everything they need to survive and sustain.
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing we're like doing in this program at Paradeisos and in the restoration program. Like if we're focusing on all these things for them to survive and sustain and all these practical ways to like engage with that and support that. But if the relational component isn't there, what is that all worth? So I started like reassessing and maybe we can like talk about this as we like dive into like more things. But like the word that's been like standing out to me this year is presence.
Good.
Like, how do we do all these things well? We got to be present. And that can look like different things with my kids and different things with work and friends and my wife. But what does being present with those relationships mean, and how does that change how we interact with them? And so I started like really assess like, what does balance look like? How am I present in everything I do? How can I still do it well? And how do I balance all of that?
Yeah. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm not a disciplined person. Like, you know, your brother-in-law is very disciplined.
Yes.
lives his life by a calendar, you know, notes for everything, knows what's going on. And man, I've always just been like, let's just see what happens.
Yeah, me too.
And then,
Me too.
And we'll go from there. And I realized that presence has purpose. presence has to be planned. It can happen spontaneously, but there's always a moment, a time, a place to be present. So I really started digging into that. Like, okay, so how do I do that with my kids? If I'm feeling like, dude, I'm not a friend to my children right now. Like, I'm a good dad, I'm a good provider, but like, I'm not a friend to my child, or I am not my wife's, like best bud.
Yeah.
Like, how do I fix that? I got to be intentional with that.
Mm-hmm.
I got to make sure that I have time and a place to be present in that relationship. And it started with just small things, dude, like just scheduling dates, like one a week with each kid.
Mm-hmm.
So every kid gets a daddy date night once a month with dad. And, me and my wife, once a month, always, no matter what, we get one night out. So schedule that babysitter out, 4 months in advance to make sure we can do that. And in those small changes of really intentional presence, dude, life started getting way easier. And my body I started eating better, started being more aware of what was going on, with me physically, spiritually, all of this stuff. And just making time for all of those things. And even with God, dude, being intentional about being in the presence of God. All of this, it's like my calendar went from being scary and crazy to very intentionally planned. And the health in that was exponential. Like now I can sit down with participants at the coffee shop and be present. And I can sit down with my staff and be present. And I can sit down with my family and do the same thing. And it's I almost have too much time now because I've been so intentional with how I'm being present with people. Wow. It leaves time for me to pop in and do things like this on a Monday morning. But before, man, it was chaotic. And if we read anything, the first page of the Bible, we know God steps in to calm the chaos. That's not, his presence literally calms the chaos of the seas in the first chapter of the Bible. That sets the scope for the rest of Scripture. And I feel that's what we need to do just in our lives to maintain ministry and work and family. Yeah. Because you want to invest and dive 100% into everything, but
yeah, for sure.
We're only 100%. We're not 300 or 400%. So
yeah. I was listening to a song on the way over here. It's there's an artist, Chris Renzema.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's got a song. He says, "I want to hold on to the right things. I'm going to go with the rest." But I was thinking about that, just kind of what you're saying, because oftentimes we get into this or at least for me, I get into this where I have to choose. And I think maybe it could be lack of scheduling or something like that, where I'm man, but I really need to do this, or I really need to, and then I'm I feel like I'm forsaking my kids if I choose work, or I feel like I'm forsaking my work if I choose kids or my ministry, I like the way that you put it about just scheduling, making time, making a place for everything where it kind of needs to be. And it doesn't have to be an either or situation. It can be a both and you could find peace in having it. And I love, I feel like you've been talking to my wife, because she just told me the other day, she was like, do you ever feel like your life is chaos? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, you want to do a scheduling app? And I'm like, okay. Yeah, so I guess you guys have been talking. I'm like, I see where she's getting this.
I feel
from,
I talk about it randomly. I am, this is probably me confessing. I do use AI to schedule a lot of these things. So.
Run it, do it. Chat GPT is the man, or woman, whatever.
So, but yeah, I don't know. And then you'll begin to realize what's not worth scheduling. Yeah, the things that are important to you, you're going to put into a slot. And it's going to hold that slot. Yeah. And the things that don't really matter and aren't important, you won't even waste your time scheduling it. Yeah. So.
That's all. Yeah. No, I need to do it. I've been procrastinating, which is a big fault of mine. I guess, I'll put stuff off for a few months and then I'll finally get around to it. But that's good. No, because I definitely get that. And, there's been a question I think that has popped up on here a few times. And it's who are you if like everything's gone? The Job moment, we talk about that, right? Because Colleen asked me something. She's like, do you ever have time to just be right in the presence? And because sometimes even in the midst of what I would call intentional time, I still have this do mindset,
Yeah.
And I don't know, just talking through it. Cause I love that presence concept and being present. Like, do you ever understand, or do you ever feel that of like, sometimes it's hard to just, even if it's scheduled, to disconnect.
Yeah.
And just say, I'm just going to be here right now. I'm not going to be trying to do something or fix something or make something happen. I'm just going to exist and share a moment with someone.
Yeah, man. I'm exactly like you. I in the sense of like, I always want to see an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like something I'm processing currently. It's like, is it okay to like step into that place of like silence or solitude and alone time and no distractions to expect an outcome because I want an outcome? Or is it okay to like not have any outcome?
Yeah.
and I forget who it was I was listening to recently, but like thinking about like what's your mountaintop moment? Like what's your moment when you're on top of the mountain with Yahweh? Like, what is that? Are you coming down with tablets? Are you coming down glowing?
Yeah.
Are you just coming down and all you're coming with was, I was on top of the mountain with Yahweh and I'm not really bringing anything back right now, but I'll keep going until that happens, or that I see that, or I have something. And I say that because I think it's more about the obedience and consistency than actually having the outcome. Like if you're constantly walking up the mountain and sitting with God over and over and over again, like you can't not be changed and affected. The first time you walk down, you might just be Daniel.
Yeah.
Regular old Daniel. But just in the practical sense, and I'll use this. So we have a creek at the back of our yard. And like I said earlier, I'm not disciplined at all. So like waking up in the morning and like intentionally doing something where like I'm not like cutting down my email list or checking off to-do lists and stuff like that is like really hard for me. So it's probably been about maybe almost a year now I've been doing this, maybe a little less than a year. Every morning at the same time, my alarm goes off. No one's awake yet. Kids are asleep. Wife's in bed. I put my clothes on, let the dog out, and I just walk to the back of my property and I just stand at the creek. No phone, nothing. It's like pitch dark usually still. And I just listen. And sometimes that's just water. All I hear is just water flowing, and it's pleasant and peaceful. I'm relaxed. But sometimes I hear God, and I think it's that I've committed to being obedient to what I said I would do. And I said every morning I would walk to the creek and listen. Whether or not I hear you or not, I'm going to be there and I'm going to listen.
That's good.
And I had to be okay with not hearing anything some days. But the moments where I come down the mountain and I have something.
Yeah. The glow.
Yeah.
Dude.
And then that turns into, now how do I share that with whoever I'm going to encounter today, or why you gave that to me? So I think it's just being obedient in the consistency.
Yeah.
Like without expectation of an outcome.
Yeah. That's good. Because I can see, just for me, like, there's almost a fear around not getting an outcome, right? Like maybe I'll be a failure. I didn't do it right or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be that, it doesn't have to be scary to just have something as it is and be as you are.
Yeah.
That's good. I love that, man.
Yeah, man.
I love that. So you guys said you had 4 kids. You said the oldest is 11. Tell me about the other. How old are the other ones?
So this is a fun story too. So we got married in 2013. Found out we were pregnant very quickly after that. We had our first son. We were still in California at the time. No support. Like, we were living, the closest like relative or anything was like 6 hours away from us. And like we had just moved. I had gotten a promotion and stuff, and we like moved far away from like any friends or anything like that. And then we found out we were pregnant.
Wow.
So we were like, okay, how do we do this? California is really expensive. We were both working like full-time jobs and like barely making it. And my wife's parents were retiring in Florida. They're like, well, move to Florida and we'll help you do this baby thing. So we're like, all right. So put in for a transfer, and like literally 2 days later, hey, you want to move here? We got you a position out here. Like, so we moved to Florida. We were there for 7 years. And in that 7 years, there was a span of 9 months where we went from 1 child to 4 children.
Wow.
So both of my girls, it's ages right now. They're 5, 6, 9, and 11.
Okay.
Girls are in the middle, 6 and 9. Both adopted out of the foster system. So like, we had our oldest son. We got a phone call about adopting our oldest daughter, got a phone call about picking up our youngest daughter at the hospital to foster. And then we found out we were pregnant, all in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Golly.
So at the time too, we were living in a 900 square foot house, and we were like, okay, we got to figure out how to parent 4 children, raise 2 babies at the same time. And
wow.
Yeah. So it was a wild season. Crazy. And, but it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. How old were they when you moved here?
I want to say our youngest was about to turn 2 when we moved out here. So we moved out, it was a January. So he must have just turned 2, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So.
And yeah. I love the way that you were talking about your process of getting into PLN. I was just listening to you talk about like being unqualified, and but they said the letter that you wrote, your cover letter, was amazing. Isn't that such a God thing?
It is. And like the funny thing too is like I've asked to see it because I can't find it on my like hard drives anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know what it said. And I was like, do you guys still have that on file? And it's been 4 years, and I don't know what it was. I'm like, did I even write a cover letter, or did you guys just like see like what was it? So yeah, but
they got the wrong email mixed up with yours.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the Lord did something. So
that's cool. Yeah, I just love it. And I was talking to some guys the other day. It was a Men of Valor event. We went to the Capitol Hill.
Yeah,
and a lot of the guys, these guys had just been out of prison for probably 20 days, if that. Some of them 1 or 2 days, and they're coming from that prison system, and then we're standing in Court Hall, which is where all the legislators and stuff are, and all these guys in suits and everybody. But something that it kept recurring is a lot of these guys kept saying, man, they were elevating these legislators and stuff above them, and because they all felt unqualified.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, and it's something I told him, I'm like, today you're qualified. It doesn't matter. Like, the Lord levels the playing field regardless of what it is when you're standing for something and pushing forward for justice or for love of your neighbor, like whatever, as long as it's in a vein that God has called us to, like there is nothing that can disqualify you.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
And I love that, man. And so I just love to see it even in you going to PLN. Like you just said you weren't qualified, but you saw something. I mean, even though you were desperate for a job, I'm sure the mission statement was meaningful to you, you know?
Yeah. And I was lucky too. Like my wife has been working with vulnerable populations since she was like 17.
Yeah.
So I like saw that in her and stuff, and it was intriguing and stuff like that, but definitely scary, man. I remember marrying her. I think it was like the first like serious date we were on. I was like, I'm gonna marry this girl.
Yeah.
And she was like, I just want you to know, we're probably gonna end up moving to Africa sometime, and we're probably gonna adopt a bunch of kids. And I was like, yeah, you're beautiful. I'm for sure in for that.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, let's go.
And here we are,
funny,
like,
man.
So waiting for Africa to come, but we'll see.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What part would you go to?
Well, she does work in Kenya.
Okay.
So, I mean, before we moved to Nashville, that was like, are we moving there right now? Is that what's happening right now?
Yeah.
But the Lord like made it very clear that it wasn't the time. That's probably like when the kids are, you know, done with high school and stuff like that and stuff. And then we can just sort of go do that kind of thing. But
yeah.
I don't know.
What kind of work would you do?
Well, I mean, she runs 2 schools out there.
Okay.
So there's a lot of work involved there. And then I don't know. I mean, the coffee industry out there and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But I think predominantly she just wants to be closer to the work she's doing. Like she's been traveling out there like 3-4 times a year.
Wow.
So that ends up being very expensive and stuff like that. And but we'll see. Yeah, I think we're still a good.
Some years
hopefully
away.
like 13 or 14 years from now. But, yeah.
That's cool, man. Well, that's good. I love that. Yeah, that you're just ingrained in it. I mean, whether you be from your wife or your work, like that, you're just surrounded by people loving people.
Yeah,
you
dude,
know?
I don't know. I find it hard sometimes when like people are like, man, how do you have the margin or like energy to like do all of this like relationship stuff with so many people and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I don't know if I would have it any other way. And I mean, your kids get to see it too. Like, I mean, we bring our kids down to Monday Night Outreach, and all of them have been to Africa, and like it's just like part of us now. Like the world is filled with like hard, tough, sad things. And, I think growing up, I was like, a lot of that stuff was like hidden from me. Maybe not hidden, but like I didn't see it. It wasn't shown to me.
Yeah.
So like growing up and getting older and then realizing, man, there's people that sleep outside every day. There's people that don't eat like on a daily basis,
Yeah.
Like that feels like a simple thing to say, but like that, if you really think about it, that's mind blowing. Like, like, and the storms just came through, the tornadoes and stuff like that. And, winters are freezing and stuff like that. And I remember last year, man, me and Colleen, it was like Christmas Day or the day after Christmas. We went out to some camps to just make sure because it had snowed. Yeah. And it was like 2 years ago. Yeah. And I remember looking at my phone and it said like, feels like -19.
That's insane.
And then we'd like, in our huge jackets and like coveralls and stuff like that and thermals, and we walked down the snowy path into a forest, like a wooded area, and people were just in their tents that slept there all night. And it's just like, that's in our backyard, dude. That's like right up the road from where we're at right now. It's unreal. Like I can't not see that anymore. Like I can't not think about that anymore. I can't not want to be at least involved in something that makes an impact or changes that. Yeah. Because like the end of the day, like the person sleeping in the tent and me are both human beings. We're both image bearers of God.
Yeah.
So like, what's the disconnect there, you know? Like, and I don't have an answer for that. I'm trying to figure that out myself, but like, I want to invest anything I can and educate as many people as I can as to like the reality that, you know, we don't have to go to Africa to like witness and see like poverty and hunger.
Yeah.
Like it's here,
It's right here
in Nashville.
Yeah.
It's, you know, my family's still out in LA area and it's crazy out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's sad. It just, people don't, I give people credit because I don't think most people do it or even know that they ignore it. You know, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
You know, but I think once you get into it, once your eyes are open to it, there's no going back. Not unless you're just kind of heartless, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's the culture we live in. You know, we live in, everything is a facade of comfort and, you know, satisfaction, whatever it is, and however we can maintain that level of satiation in our whatever spirit, then, you know, the other stuff just kind of, like, I guess falls to the margin, right? Out of the peripherals.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, I'm glad there are people out there doing it. I'm glad you're doing it, you know, as unqualified as you are now. Just kidding.
Your wife does more than I do.
Well, yeah, but I don't know that. I don't say yeah, but still, you're out there doing what God has called you to do, you know, and I definitely see the fact that his hand is on it, you know, and that's cool. So tell me more about the day-to-day of Paradeisos.
Yeah. I mean, the shop is a shop, man. It's a coffee shop.
Yeah, running.
Barista's going, you know, got a small kitchen there. So like things are moving, getting busy too, which is great. But what's happening that like I think most people don't see when they come in is got some green curtains, and behind those green curtains is our roasting room. So I have folks in there roasting beans a few days a week. And those are all people that we either met at like one of our outreaches or met in an encampment. And the process starts with our outreach team. So they go through what we call the homefulness journey. So, you know, that moment where they're like, I don't want to live outside anymore. They start working with one of our outreach workers, and whatever steps they need to take, documents they need to get, they work with them on that. And then the end goal is a picture with a key unlocking a door, you know? And then from that moment comes the opportunity to really wrap around them as a community and say, okay, we got the key. You're inside. How do we stay inside? And what does that look like for you? Where do you need to heal? And a lot of that happens behind those green curtains in that roasting room.
Yeah,
man. And it has its ups and downs. You know, it's not always a smooth path or point A to point B. You know, but healing's happening. Folks are working. Business is growing, so I'm beginning to be able to give more and more hours to folks, which is nice, man. Yeah, you don't realize, I think, apart from like the programming side of things, like, yes, like there's all these like practical things we can like learn and teach them,
right,
and train them and stuff like that. But like just being with people, like having that moment to like sit here and have a conversation with someone about life and what's going on and what I'm thinking about and what I'm feeling. And then also like to use your hands to like create something, like to like watch someone grow in the sense of like, I just roasted a bag of coffee that person is drinking right now and enjoying, and like watching their face drink the coffee and knowing like I was a part of that creation process. Yeah. Like that in itself is like so healing.
Look at the process itself. You're taking something, green coffee beans that basically no good
Yeah.
as they are.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they take the beans, they put them in this process, refined by fire,
Yeah.
and they come out aromatic and
Yeah.
ready to be
Yep.
just transformed into something else. I mean, that's a testimony of the journey that these people go through in itself.
Yes, exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I've always pictured gardening and seeds planting and growing and fruit and like all that stuff, but even just as simple as as a coffee roasting process, like how amazing is that even in that, like the people that you're serving are going through a transformation process just as similar as something.
Yeah, dude.
Like coffee beans.
And the fun thing is, so I love that you brought that up because on our coffee bag, I had one in the car. I should have brought it in.
Yeah.
On our coffee bag. Oh, actually, I have it tattooed on my arm, which is crazy. But
let's go.
Maybe I can. I don't know. It's going to be upside down because I don't know how to hold my arm, but I'm going to get that somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's a hand holding a coffee bean, little tiny coffee bean, like light radiating off of it.
Yeah.
And on the bag, on the banner says love and dignity. So like that's one of our mottos at People Loving Nashville and at the coffee shop is everyone deserves love and dignity.
Right.
And in this process of taking this tiny little bean, like, I changed. That's why. I made them move a book over here, and you can't read it, but it just says "to paradise" on the book because Paradeisos is just the Greek word for paradise.
Okay.
And but like that tiny bean, I always like to compare it to the parable of the mustard seed. That this tiny thing grows into something so huge and so wonderful. It grows into, and my worldview, the kingdom of God.
Right.
That people's lives are being changed by this tiny little bean, and they're being introduced to the healer, and they're experiencing the kingdom of God in that coffee room, in that meeting with the restoration specialists, in the community that they're building at the coffee shop, and in the volunteers who come in through People Loving Nashville and all that stuff. And they're experiencing the kingdom of God, and it all revolves around this tiny little bean. And the cool thing is they're learning this, that a small thing can change the world. And when we're seeing people who are graduating the program, now facilitating things in the program.
Let's go.
Like, there's a couple ladies who like really got into like the community events, and they're like, dude, can we help plan community events now? Like, we're done with the program, but we still want to be invested in this community because of what it did for us. And like, I think if we could all just figure out what is our tiny little bean, what's the small thing in my sphere, my life, my talents, what is that small little bean that I can share with people that can change the world? And it's like, I know this sounds crazy, and people are like, oh, Joey, you're too hopeful, da 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 da. But I'm like, dude, no, like that is the kingdom of God. Is like, we're all so different. We all have different talents. We all have different experiences, but we all have something. We all have this tiny thing that we can contribute, that if we put all of these beans in a pile, it'd be ridiculous. I just moved 10,000 pounds of coffee.
Yikes.
And that was a lot of tiny little beans, dude. Filled up a whole huge room. I'm like, man, if I truly believe that something small could change people's lives, what can 10,000 of those little things do?
Yeah.
How many lives are we going to change with 10,000 pounds of coffee versus one, cup of coffee?
Yeah.
And I like to think about like the church and humanity and the kingdom in that way. How do we bring heaven to Nashville? We all participate in it. We all play a part in it. We all lay our own brick.
Yeah. You're seeing it. Yeah, I love it. Because, I mean, in the common view, I think, people see like just a bean, just a coffee bean. But when you fully realize the value of something like that. And to most people, it may just be a coffee bean, right?
Yeah.
But to what you're doing and the mission and the purpose behind it, it has so much weight to it. I love that this one little bean could just change the world.
Yeah.
And it's changing lives. It's changing hearts. I come into the coffee shop to work sometimes and hang out and grab some coffee. And I see the atmosphere. I see the vibe. I see the participants that you're talking about, whether working or having meetings with Colleen or one of the other specialists that you have there. And it's smiles and it's hope and it's joy. You talk about you have too much hope. No, man.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you need. And I love that. I love that. Well, so walk me through this. So they're roasting and what does the specialist side look like? What do they do as far as what kind of things are they working together on?
Yeah.
Because, it's one thing for the employment, but how are you addressing the other?
Yeah. So the two main goals, so that's sort of like a structured hierarchy of what we're looking at. When someone comes into the program, we're looking at two things. Where do they need healing? And how do we get an income?
Okay.
So looking at when people are getting put into housing, the barriers to them staying in housing were eventually, if they're not paying for it at that moment, they're going to have to pay for it somehow, whether that's government things like disability insurance and stuff like that, or they're going to have to work. They're going to have to get a job to sustain it. So one thing we work at is what does that look like? What are the steps we need to take to secure some type of income?
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be with Paradeisos.
It doesn't have to be with us, no. Yeah. And we've had partners try to do the program with us, and some successful, some not. Right. But like I said, it's the willingness to just be obedient in something. Mm-hmm. And if you're a business owner listening to this right now, hey man, hit me up. I have folks that want to work and need someone to invest in that. And
that's good.
As the coffee shop grows, the hopes are that we don't have to look for work anywhere else. It's just all inside. Mm-hmm. But we're not there yet.
Okay.
But yeah, so the income component to it, and then a place to heal. So a place to work and a place to heal. So an income and healing. And the whole healing side is really broken down to mind, body, soul. Mm-hmm. Living on the streets a lot of time, there's a lot of trauma there. So do we need to heal from trauma? What does that look like? So we have counselors and therapists that we're able to introduce them to and get them going on a rhythm of that and working through trauma. Body, gosh, living on the streets, you're just eating whatever you can eat to survive. You don't know when the next meal's coming. So we start to talk about what is healthy eating? Mm-hmm. So, I don't know if Colleen shared this with you. I think she's had a participant that was I don't drink water. I strictly drink soda. And one of the goals was just okay, I just want you to drink a cup of water a day.
Just one little, just
and the funny thing is, I think when she tells the story, it's that was a fight. That was unbearable for this person to do, was just drink a cup of water. So we're stepping into things where this might not be stuff that we think about regularly, but what's their physical health look like? We did a yoga class with the participants the other day. That's cool. And just really engaging with how does your body feel? Because trauma also affects the physical body. Mm-hmm. So if we're trying to find healing in the mental spaces, with therapy and stuff like that, but how do we also engage with the body to help that healing process go? Nutrition, exercise, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The simple things, man. We take people to the parks and go on walks and things that I think we take for granted that we get to do all the time are really transformative. And then obviously soul, our goal, not everyone that enters the program is a Christian nor religious. Yeah. So that's where we get creative. Our hopes, I guess, is to introduce everyone to the healer. Where are we going to find actual healing? Yes, we can get therapy. Yes, we can exercise and eat well, but for us, it's Jesus.
Yeah.
We got to meet Jesus. And we've seen that in people's lives, and some we haven't. But I think the biggest part of this is like when you're introduced to the program, you're introduced to a community.
Mm.
Like, and you've been there. We have hundreds of volunteers like throughout the week that come in and out of different places. And a lot of those volunteers really invest in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those volunteers, outside of like coming and serving food on a Monday night, they're like taking folks to the movies and hanging out and calling them and texting them and checking in and making sure everything's good. And that community is such a beautiful picture of what the kingdom of God offers. Is such a beautiful picture. Like we're called to be the body of Christ. Why? Because we're supposed to do what Jesus did.
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposed to be the visible representation of Jesus here on earth right now.
Mm.
So what's like the easiest, most practical way to introduce someone to the healer? And I believe that's through community.
Yeah.
Through that consistent, regular interaction and relationship.
Mm.
So we have folks that have been a part of the community for a long time, and we've seen growth and change and amazing things happen in their souls. And some that aren't there yet. And maybe we'll never get there, but we won't stop.
Yeah.
Trying to be that support and that picture of what God has for them,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just loving on them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it's like, I was wanting to be like the show Cheers. Like everyone knows your name.
Yeah.
I like picture one day I want to do like a commercial mock or something like that of like people walking in Paradeisos and like everyone like saying hi and stuff like that. And I mean, if we did anything, if we could create a space where everyone walks in and they know they're seen,
Mm-hmm.
then I think we're doing our job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. And I don't want to get too much into this because time is short, but that's keeping the main thing. Because I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but yeah, we get too caught up in the conversion kind of thing, like measuring success on how many people say Jesus, which I mean, in a sense is correct, but it's like you said, it's like some people may never do it, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop loving them in the way that they got. I mean, like you said, they're in the image of God.
Yeah,
God made us in His likeness, and who are we to reject them for not coming to Christ as soon as we want them to?
Man, yeah, this could be another topic for another day.
Yeah.
But I've always thought about this, and some of you listening might not agree, but dude, I'm like, look at the disciples, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, they followed Jesus and He taught them every day and stuff. Not all of them believed in that season of following Him.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, that might be heresy, but from what I have come to grips with and I see is like, man, I'm not sure all of them were like, you're the Messiah, dude. You're God incarnate. Like, but they were experiencing healing being in that community.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the long game, man. Jesus kept going and going and going with them.
Yeah.
To the point of death.
To all the way.
Yeah.
All the way.
And even when He rose from the dead, some of His disciples were like,
Yeah, Thomas like, no, I don't know, man.
So,
let me touch your side. Yeah.
So I think that's if I'm saying I'm called to do what Jesus did so that people could see Him, then it's a long game, man.
Yeah.
And I might take it to my grave, but I'm going to keep
doing it.
Doing it, yeah.
And regardless of their situation, I think is the big, the big thing, because we often get caught up of like loving those who love us back kind of thing, right?
Dude, and that goes, for sure. But I think that brings us back to like what I was talking about with like my kids and the word presence. Like, I don't have to fix anything. for anyone.
Yeah.
I don't. I just need to be present.
Yeah.
And the power in that can like illuminate paths to whatever needs to be fixed. But even just like, dude, and man, your wife gets to see it way more than I do, but like sitting with these people every single week. And even if it's just sitting with them is changing their lives.
Wow.
Like, and I think the pressure of that like changes. Like, yes, let's be practical and look for ways to get to where they want to go. That is our job. Yes, let's do that. But before all of that, just be present. And like that takes the weight off too. And I have a healer that can do all that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, no, just because our identity is set up in that fixing things. And our cultural identity is set up in fixing people.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, no, man, I don't know. I'm over here I'm almost dumbfounded. I'm like, revelation is happening right now as we speak, which is amazing. You know, I think I definitely know that God brought us here right now in this moment. I feel it in my soul because I needed to hear some of the things that you've said today. I'm sure people on that are listening will resonate with that too. You know,
cool. I'm glad, dude.
Yeah, dude. Thanks. I told you, lay pastor, bro.
Just obedient where I need to be obedient.
That's it, man.
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, I think we're about out of time. Thank you, Joey,
of course,
for coming on here and just sharing your heart, sharing your thoughts, man. I wish we had more time.
Yeah,
I definitely want to have you back at some point.
Next season.
Yeah. So would you mind telling the folks at home about how they can get in touch with Paradeisos or come see where it's at?
Yeah, cool. Of course. Simple ways. If you're a coffee drinker, you can support us by buying our coffee, and you can do that a couple ways. You can go to ParadeisosCoffee.com. Maybe they can put it.
Yeah, I'll put it
on the thing for spelling reasons. And you can subscribe to a bag of coffee being shipped to your house monthly, weekly, whatever you want, however much coffee you drink. Or you can come into the store and you can buy a cup of coffee and see what's going on. All of those purchases go straight back into the program and what we do. It helps provide jobs for those who need jobs. But another way, if you're not a coffee drinker, a very simple way, get onto peoplelovingnashville.com and see what we're doing throughout the city. And if you'd like to support us in that way, you could always donate. So those are a few ways you guys can get involved.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Joey, for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Just excited to see what God's doing in your life and at Paradeisos and PLN. And we're going to keep this conversation going later, though. Cool. I got some questions for you.
Sounds good.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, thanks to Men of Valor for sponsoring this episode. And thank you again to Joey for just being here from People Loving Nashville. Make sure you check them out, peoplelovingnashville.com and ParadeisosCoffee.com. Yeah, I'll put it at the bottom and in the description so you can click on the link. That way you don't mess up. Because I know I would. I couldn't spell Paradeisos if you paid me. But yeah, man, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Have a good day.
We're breaking down